Good evening, guys. I hope your day's going well. So far, a crazy Friday for us because we're getting all packed up to move. Got to take the cat to the groomer and get his hair all did because my father-in-law is allergic and we're trying to make the cat more bearable for him. Now, I've seen cat allergies be handled by people who are willing to put up with a cat for a little while. If you're not deathly allergic, my understanding is that you can kind of learn to live with them, but I'm really hoping to make him more acceptable as far as his dander goes for the in-laws. But I am intrigued to talk about today's topic because this is something that conservatives have been kind of cautious of discussing. I think that they're not sure what to do with this topic because conservatives, I've noticed, have what I would call like an abused spouse syndrome, a little bit like Stockholm syndrome, which means that whenever someone is like um, nice to them or even simply non-hostile to them for their views, they latch on to them. They're like, oh my gosh, this person's great, whatever they say goes. And I don't think that's wise, but I understand why it is. So today we're going to look at Kanye West because he has said some things. So I don't know if you guys remember all the way back to his kind of like foray into not being a super leftist, but I remember him tweeting out that he liked the way Candace Owens thinks, which is an interesting and pretty bold thing to comment, right? So he's obviously not exactly in the pocket of the far leftists. More recently, he was talking about being pro-life. He really went all out on that. Like, I remember when he was running for president in 2020. I know people who voted for him, but I remember he really teared up about the possibility that he might face an abortion in his family. He thought that was incredibly upsetting, and I really don't blame him. Honestly, more power to him. I'm glad he is pro-life. I think he has what it takes to be a powerful voice for that. But some of his other views are a little weird. So let's talk about that. And we're going to start by looking at a Rolling Stone article. I know that's everybody's favorite source. This one wasn't too terrible, but it also wasn't great because it is, after all, the Rolling Stone. So let's see what their headline is. They say, white supremacists are doing backflips over Kanye West's anti-Semitism. Okay, this is actually true, and you can understand why the far right is anti-Semitic at its core. So is the far left, which is something that we'll get into in just a minute, and Rolling Stone does not touch on it at all. It's so crazy. I don't know why that is. But this article is basically just pointing out that, oh my gosh, white supremacists are anti-Semitic. That's so crazy. My mind is blown, and I didn't know that. Kind of take issue with this subtitle, which says, while many conservatives commentators struggle to reject the rapper's anti-Semitic posts. And I could tie that to what I said earlier about conservatives being a little bit abused just in general. Like, I wrote a post about how being conservative is good for your brain because you're constantly forced to defend your views. But it is hard to hold views that mean that people, by and large, are more than willing to denigrate you at every turn, in every institution, in any way they can, at all costs. It's hard. That's hard to live with. I know. It is challenging. It's even harder to be, like, outspoken about your beliefs. It's hard to be pro-life. People come after you all the time. They call you the worst names in the book just because they can. So I do think that is why I think it's correct that some conservatives are struggling to find the words to talk about Kanye West right now. It is tricky. I understand. We're not white supremacists, though, and it's okay to condemn out anti-Semitism. In fact, if we want to condemn anti-Semitism, maybe we should look at some other sources of anti-Semitism. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this, but Ilhan Omar said crazy offensive things about Israel. She said terrible stuff about Jewish people in general. She's not a big fan. Okay, she's still on Twitter. Here she is. Her compatriot, Rashida Tlaib, also removed a tweet. Good for her for removing it. She used the phrase from the river to the sea, which is talking about, Palestine's overcoming Israel. I'm not getting into that topic for sure. We're not touching that one. She's still on Twitter. And then we also have Barack Obama with Louis Farrakhan, who's a really renowned spring of anti-Semitism. So he's part of the Black Hebrew Israel. No, he's part of the Nation of Islam. I'm not sure what the difference is between the Black Hebrew Israelites and the Nation of Islam, but Farrakhan is, he was, I believe, a pastor at the church that Obama attended for years. Obama had no idea that he was anti-Semitic. It's just so crazy. But I believe that Louis Farrakhan is still on Twitter. I didn't pull that one up. But in all of these cases, none of these people have been canceled. Nothing's really been said about them. I do recall that the Democrats came out after Ilhan Omar said her spicy words and generally condemned hate against all different groups. So this was their way of saying, well, we did something bad, but you guys are worse, so we're going to make some kind of declaration that yells at everyone. So just par for the course, schoolyard nonsense. And then this also came up, and I think that a parallel was drawn here that shouldn't have been, and I'll talk a little bit about why. So people were quick to tie this, and this is actually something Candace Owens did. She was talking about how she had word that Kanye West had been removed from his bank. And this was right after these spicy comments that he made. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, he's being canceled just for holding a viewpoint, a controversial viewpoint. And I don't think that's the case, and here's why. So I have this from Eden. I don't know who Eden is. But it says, to outline what happened, Kanye announced to CNBC on September 15th that he would be pulling his money out of JP Morgan because the CEO of the bank would not give him a call. He took to social media to air out the drama with the bank, naming several bankers he took issue with. Okay, that's a little bit different. That's interesting. And this is from Sarah Eisen, who is a blue check, so we will trust her completely, as one does with blue checks. Kanye West announced on CNBC during our interview he was pulling his money out of JP Morgan and switching to Bank of America because Jamie Dimon didn't call him. This was several weeks ago, September 15th. This letter appears to be an acknowledgement of his breakup. And Sarah, quote, tweets Candace Owens saying, earlier today I learned Kanye West was officially kicked out of JP Morgan Chase. I was told there was no official reason given, but they sent this letter as well to confirm that he has until late November to find another place for his Yeezy empire to bank. Wow, I'm pretty impressed I can read that half text there at the bottom. So it looks like Candace Owens may have gotten the wrong impression about why he was removed from his bank. He wasn't technically removed from his bank. This was a choice that he made. So I'm glad we could clear that up, but at the same time, I will say that banks are more than happy to cancel people for holding the wrong viewpoints. Like, this has been going on for years. I remember when I first started paying attention, I was like, oh, well, I feel like you should worry a lot about where you keep your money and whether they're going to take issue with your viewpoints. That's definitely something to keep in mind, something to consider moving forward. Let's see here. But I want to know why Kanye West is so different than Rashida Tlaib, Louis Farrakhan, or Ilhan Omar. I don't know why anti-Semitism is allowed from members of the far left and not from kooky people on the moderate right, whatever Kanye West is. Although I suppose that being pro-life means that he's an outright terrorist at this point. And I'm concerned about this because watching the Alex Jones thing was deeply unsettling to me because it just looks like they're making an example of him. And I hate it. I really hate that. That's just such a sign of such horrible things to come. Let's see why they might have an issue with Kanye instead of these leftist peeps. So this is from the Heritage Foundation, which we like. We enjoy their input. It says, Kanye West dares to defy Black Lives Matter. There's your problem. I Googled Black Lives Matter on my journey to this article eventually. And I was reading titles about how great Black Lives Matter has been, how they've been super effective. And we know that they have been buying massive mansions for themselves. They don't care at all about their stated goals. They are, quote unquote, according to them, not me, trained Marxists. This is not an organization that is in it for the people who need their help, the people they claim they're helping, the people that they call victims all the time. This is an organization that is a self-sustaining charity that needs a cause to fight against so that they can continue to bring in money and continue to, buy their big homes and have their big parties and be splashy and influential and push their worldview. It's a serious issue, and I don't like that at all. But I think this is exactly why Kanye West is being maligned as widely as he is. If the media were fair, we know they're not, but if they were, I will preface this by saying I don't like when we just point at the other side and go, well, what if that was us? We'd be being treated differently. Yes, we know. We would be being treated differently for sure. That's the way it is. Unfortunately, that is a sad state of the world. And it's because leftists own our institutions, they own the media, they own the deep state. They're seriously invested in making a serious difference. And to their credit, I suppose, it's being pretty effective. I mean, you got to give them that. But I think this is exactly why they're going so hard after Kanye. And I will say, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I did feel like they're kind of going after Kanye West in the similar way that they decided to try to go after Alex Jones, just to make an example of him, kind of as a warning to other people who might be so bold as to hold controversial viewpoints. I personally don't think that any speech should be illegal. I don't think there is such I don't think there's such a thing as a hate crime. I think that all crimes should be prosecuted in similar ways, obviously with differing degrees of severity. But I think that I'll never forget where I was when this dawned on me. I was sitting in the car looking out the window and I thought, you know what? It's not actually illegal to be racist. And it is not illegal to be anti-Semitic. I don't like it. You don't have to like it. The thing is that we don't defend the speech of people we like. We don't defend the speech and the actions of people that we don't care. Okay, I'm confusing myself here. It's more important that we defend speech we don't like than speech we do like. It's very easy to defend all the people you do like. It's easy to be in for your friends. We know this. The challenge arises, and the reason that the U.S. is great, the reason that the First Amendment is so important, and the reason that it exists in the first place is because freedom of speech only matters when it's for speech that you don't like. That is the long and short of it. And Kanye West is technically an employer. He owns a couple brands, I think, but he's not using anti-Semitism against employees. He's not using it in any official public policy position, unlike Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, but I digress. He's allowed to hold views that disagree from the usual. And so am I, because it's actually pretty unusual to be pro-life. It's actually pretty unusual to believe that women are very, very different from men, different strengths, different weaknesses. I know this is a tough topic because I don't like stuff like, I personally don't like racism. I love Martin Luther King Jr.'s idea of looking at people based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. I've always thought that's true. I don't like anti-Semitism. I don't really like the idea of looking at an entire group and being like, I don't like them. That doesn't really make sense to me. I'm much more individualistic. I care more about what someone thinks on their own merits, and I know that everyone has something that they can probably will teach me if I listen to them. So it's kind of frustrating to watch what's happening with Kanye. It's not surprising. I feel like we're in our own version of a color revolution, which is exciting. If you guys haven't seen those, I might try to do a deep dive on color revolutions because I know how significant they are, but I don't think I know enough about them. So I'd really recommend looking into them for sure. Recommend sources to me if you have a good source, like a history site that you really, really like and trust. So I think this is an incoming color revolution. Now, what we can do about this, I'm not really entirely sure. As far as banking goes, I really recommend going to a small credit union. I hear that's better than some of these big banks, and I would not be surprised at all. I would genuinely recommend using small businesses as much as humanly possible. And I would also recommend using the Public Square app because they are going to be able to help you locate businesses that don't hate you. And I know that I personally don't want to give money to the people who hate my views, and you probably don't either. So if you download Public Square, it's available on Google and Apple. And if you download it, you'll be able to find and get businesses involved in locating or in putting themselves on the map for non-insane views. So everyone's like, oh, well, they're right-wing businesses. I'm like, I don't think that they are. I think that these are people who are simply not far left and who are actually still interested in money, not ESGs, and who care more about their bottom line than about checking some kind of diversity box. So, Public Square, small credit union for banking. These are my two solutions today, because looking at this is kind of intimidating. The whole concept of a color revolution is no fun, but there are certainly ways that we can push back. And I think that's 100% necessary to start thinking about before it happens to us. Because we recognize what the left does not, and that is if it can happen to someone you don't like, it can happen to you too. And if you give people in charge power, it will eventually come for you, and that's something that you should definitely think about. So, I digress. I will wrap it right here. We are in the process of moving, so I don't think we're going to do a live stream tomorrow morning just because we're going to be driving. So if that's the case, I will see you guys tonight on Timcast IRL. I'm so excited. I get to go as a guest. I'm thrilled. I'm going to be on with Jessica Vaughn, who's a libertarian. It's going to be a great conversation. Too many libertarians in one room. No, just kidding. Just two libertarians. I guess Tim technically is as well, but going to be a lot of fun. Definitely join me over there, and we're on our way to 4,000 watch hours. So like, share, subscribe, check out sourpatchlids.me to see what else I'm up to, and I will catch you all on Monday. Bye, guys.